ABC General Hospital spoilers reveal that in Port Charles, the whispers had turned into a roaring certainty. Everyone believed that Anna Devane had lost her mind, and the narrative of her supposed mental collapse spread through the community like wildfire, creating a terrifying shift in perception that none of her loved ones could stop. What began as confusion fueled by trauma was now being sculpted into a weapon, used by powerful hands to paint Anna as unstable, delusional, and dangerous. Her frantic warnings about the return of Caesar Faison, her desperate insistence that old shadows were rising again, and the fear in her voice when she spoke about secrets long buried, all of it was reframed as proof of madness. Port Charles, a town long accustomed to conspiracies and dark revelations, suddenly chose the simplest explanation Anna had finally cracked under the weight of her past. Yet beneath that convenient conclusion lay a storm of hidden truths, suppressed memories, and psychological manipulation so intricate that even Anna struggled to untangle what was real. The medication forced into her system twisted her perceptions, blurring the edges of reality until her own thoughts turned into traps. Every time she tried to speak the truth, her words were dismissed as hallucinations, each new claim tightening the psychiatric noose around her. And the more the town believed she was unraveling, the more powerful the forces working against her became, allowing Cullum Sidwell and their hidden network to expand the legacy of Faison in ways Anna had feared her entire adult life. Her spiraling reputation became the perfect smokescreen for a deeper and more catastrophic plan, the resurrection knot. Literal but ideological of everything Faison once stood for. What Anna sensed, even in her chemically fractured state, was that Port Charles was on the verge of reliving its darkest chapters, and she was being silenced at the very moment her voice was needed most. The adjustments in her behavior, the moments where her fears surged beyond control, were not symptoms of insanity, but signs that the trauma inflicted on her was being strategically weaponized. She felt hunted by ghosts of a past that refused to stay buried. Haunted by the possibility that somewhere in the shadows someone was rebuilding the foundations of Faison's terror. Every hallucination she experienced seemed too vivid, too intentional, as though her mind was being steered toward collapse. Her memories of Faison, his obsessions, his manipulations, his unspeakable cruelty rose in fragments, twisting themselves into warnings she could not ignore. Even as her grip on reality thinned, Anna sensed that his legacy was expanding, stretching into the present through people who wanted his ideas, his influence, and his madness reborn in a new form. Port Charles only saw a broken woman. Anna saw an empire rebuilding itself. Her frantic attempts to warn Emma to reach Felicia, to send out messages of danger, were met with pity, skepticism, and clinical dismissal. The more she fought, the more the town recoiled, convinced that she was unraveling under phantom fears. And yet behind her trembling hands and tear-filled eyes, her instincts, the same instincts that had saved countless lives, told her she was right to be afraid. Something monstrous was waking. Plans were being put into motion in quiet rooms where her name was spoken with cold calculation. Her disappearance from society marked as necessary collateral damage. Her confinement in the psychiatric facility became more than punishment. It became a containment strategy, isolating the one person who could expose the revival of Faison's legacy. As Port Charles gossiped, speculated, and judged, Anna lay in a hospital bed. Her mind, a battlefield torn between drug-induced confusion and the remnants of clarity that told her she had to fight, or the town she spent her life protecting would fall into chaos once again. Each shock, each emotional breakdown, each plea for anyone to believe her was twisted into evidence that she was too dangerous to be free. The tragedy was not only that Port Charles believed it, but that the belief itself strengthened the very evil Anna was trying to reveal. For every voice that doubted her sanity, another door opened for the expansion of the nightmare she feared. A nightmare carrying Faison's name like a dark banner rising from the ashes of the past. Anna, trapped between reality and the cruel illusions forced upon her, understood one thing with painful clarity: if she could not escape, if she could not break through the lies being woven around her, then Faison's legacy would grow stronger than ever, and Port Charles would never see the danger coming until it was far too late. Cullum and Sidwell had long operated in the shadows of Port Charles, but now their power was tightening around Anna with frightening precision. Their influence reached far into the institutions meant to protect the vulnerable, and with that reach, they could command almost anything they wanted. The psychiatric facility holding Anna became the perfect arena for their next phase. A controlled environment where minds could be reshaped and rewritten without anyone questioning the methods. Staff members who should have safeguarded her well-being now moved like pieces on a board, manipulated by Cullum, and Sidwell, a nurse instructed to inject higher doses of medication here, a doctor told to alter her chart there. A guard ordered to isolate her under the guise of safety. It all happened quietly, efficiently, and visibly. The drugs pumped into Anna's system were not merely meant to calm her. They were designed to fracture her sense of reality to make her confusion indistinguishable from madness so the world would stop listening to her entirely. And the more the medication distorted her senses, the easier it became for Cullum and Sidwell to continue their psychological assault. The hallucinations that tormented her were not random illusions, but amplified shadows of the trauma she had endured, especially the legacy of Faison, whose name had become synonymous with fear in her life. Every time Anna closed her eyes, she felt his presence returning, not as a man, but as an ever-spreading sickness, infecting her memories, her instincts, and even her dreams. To everyone else, these reactions only confirmed that Anna was losing her grip. But internally, Anna sensed that these visions, no matter how distorted, were signals, clues that something terrible was happening beyond the walls of her confinement. She tried to warn people, tried to speak through the layers of fog, but her voice was swallowed by institutional indifference. Staff members dismissed her cries as delusional episodes. Doctors marked her words as evidence that her treatment needed to be intensified. And as her warnings were ignored, the plan against her strengthened. What made this even more heartbreaking was the suffering of the people who loved her. Emma called repeatedly, her voice laced with terror as she begged for answers that no one gave her. Felicia pushed to see Anna, insisting that something felt wrong, but the facility hid behind protocols, claiming Anna was unstable and not ready for visitors. They were kept outside the walls while Anna was slowly crushed inside them. Each passing day deepened their fear, and yet there was nothing they could do except watch from the edges, as Anna's mind was dragged through another form of captivity, one far more cruel than any physical prison. The town, meanwhile, whispered and speculated. Port Charles had always lived on gossip, but now the rumor of Anna's madness traveled with astonishing speed, creating a narrative that served Cullum and Sidwell perfectly. People believed Anna had snapped under the weight of her past, believed her warnings were fantasies, believed her obsession with Faison's return was the final unraveling of a once brilliant mind. They didn't see the broader truth. The obsession consuming Anna was not born of delusion, but of survival. She sensed a dangerous evolution, a new movement rising from the ashes of her past, and her instincts, sharpened by decades of fighting monsters, told her she was not imagining it. Something was happening. Something sinister. Something tied to Faison's legacy. And the tragedy was that the more she tried to reveal it, the more insane she appeared. This was the cruel brilliance of Cullum and Sidwell's plan. They didn't need to silence Anna themselves. All they had to do was twist her reactions, drug her clarity, and manipulate her environment until everyone else silenced her for them. Every frantic plea from Anna was interpreted as proof of instability. Every warning became evidence of deterioration. She was being trapped inside a narrative she didn't create. And as that narrative strengthened, so did the expanding legacy of Faison, an ideological resurrection unfolding quietly while Port Charles dismissed Anna as a woman broken by ghosts. In her moments of fractured clarity, Anna felt an overwhelming terror that this was just the beginning. She sensed that Cullum and Sidwell were not merely continuing their manipulation, they were escalating it. They wanted more than her silence. They wanted her erasure. They wanted the world to forget that Anna had once been a force capable of ending men like Faison. And by dismantling her mind piece by piece, they were ensuring she could never fight back. The obsession clawing at her thoughts was the last spark of her intuition trying to warn her, but inside the facility. Stripped of autonomy and drowned in medication, she had no way to act on it. This was the true catastrophe, not Anna's fear, but how expertly that fear was being weaponized. Her mind was becoming a battlefield, and every hallucination, every trembling breath, every fractured memory signaled that she was losing ground. She was being pulled toward a breaking point engineered by men who understood exactly how to destroy her without ever getting blood on their hands. Anna's story was not approaching its conclusion. It was spiraling into the most dangerous chapter yet. A chapter built on madness that was manufactured, fear that was orchestrated, and manipulation so precise it bordered on inhuman. And as the walls of her confinement closed in, one truth became terrifyingly clear. The true insanity was not inside Anna, it was in the brilliance of the monsters, who were breaking her. The moment Emma sensed that something was terribly wrong with Anna, something inside her ignited a sharp, instinctive urgency that refused to fade. At first, everyone tried to calm her, telling her that stress was clouding her judgment, insisting that Anna's confinement was a necessary step for her own safety. But Emma knew better. The more she replayed the inconsistent updates, the sanitized reports from the psychiatric facility, and the hollow reassurances from officials influenced by Cullum and Sidwell, the clearer it became that Anna was not being treated, she was being silenced. And the moment that realization solidified, Emma understood that waiting would only doom her grandmother further. She needed to act, and she needed to act fast. With every new detail, she uncovered discrepancies in Anna's medical notes, strangely edited police logs, and a sudden disappearance of staff members who last saw Anna lucid. Emma felt the situation shifting into something darker, more calculated, and undeniably dangerous. The treatments Anna was receiving were increasing at an unnatural rate. the doses doubling with no medical justification. And the reports describing her behavior looked less like real observations and more like carefully scripted text, written to justify keeping her imprisoned indefinitely. The discovery sent a wave of heat through Emma's chest. This was not incompetence. This was sabotage. She dug deeper, retracing Anna's movements before her capture, pulling at the threads of every whisper connected to Faison's lingering influence. And the deeper she ventured, the more she realized that Anna had been right all along. Something connected to Faison, his ideology, his legacy, or perhaps individuals who once served him was evolving in silence. Anna had sensed it before anyone else, but Anna was the only one who was punished for knowing the truth. That realization struck Emma like a punch. Anna wasn't losing her mind. She was being pushed toward madness by design. Emma felt her fear transform into determination. Her grandmother had spent her entire life protecting others, fighting enemies, dismantling conspiracies, surviving betrayals, and now she was the one trapped without a voice. Emma refused to let her be swallowed by that system. She began discreetly gathering allies, starting with those who had known Anna long enough to trust her instincts even in her most fragile moments. Felicia was the first to respond, her worry for Anna already simmering into anger. The two of them uncovered surveillance footage that had mysteriously disappeared from hospital databases but remained cached in old cloud storage footage clearly showing Anna coherent pleading, desperate to warn staff about something she believed was coming. Not delusional. Not violent. Coherent. That alone proved the official reports were lies. Every new piece of information heated the air around them, tightening the urgency of their mission. Emma realized that if she did not intervene now, the psychological damage inflicted on Anna might soon become irreversible. Cullum and Sidwell had the power to order anything they wanted. They could bury evidence, silence doctors, destroy medication logs, even eliminate staff who might talk. Their influence infected every hallway of the facility. Anna had no one inside those walls fighting for her. But she had Emma outside. Pieces of a plan began forming in Emma's mind. Dangerous, reckless, but necessary. She began tracking the delivery routes of pharmaceuticals going into the institution, finding that shipments marked as stabilizers were actually high-dose sedatives. She traced these orders back to shell companies tied to Sidwell, companies that had quietly expanded their reach over the last month. It was undeniable Anna was not being treated. She was being erased. The more Emma pieced together, the clearer her path became. She needed proof, real undeniable proof, that the institution was manipulating Anna's condition. If she could gather enough evidence, she could force a judge, the press, or even the WSB to intervene. Saving Anna would require exposing the conspiracy tightening around her, and Emma was prepared to burn every bridge necessary to pry those walls open. As the emotional weight grew heavier, another shift occurred: obsession. The thought of Anna trapped in a chemically induced nightmare fueled Emma's steps, turning her fear into a powerful, unstoppable heat. She imagined Anna alone, disoriented, begging to be believed while her captors twisted her reality further and further. The image kept Emma awake at night, and each sleepless hour only strengthened her resolve. This mission was no longer about uncovering the truth. It became personal, deep, emotional, almost primal. Emma understood that she was the only one who could save Anna, not because others didn't care, but because others didn't see what she now saw, a pattern repeating itself, a legacy of cruelty rising again through new hands. Anna had spent years haunted by Faison's obsession, and now a new form of that legacy was poisoning her life. Emma refused to allow history to repeat itself. The situation grew more volatile as Emma's discoveries multiplied. Strange disappearances of patients whose diagnoses mirrored Anna's, transfers executed quietly in the middle of the night, protocols rewritten after Sidwell visited the facility. Every detail she uncovered added another layer to the nightmare, proving that the scheme was larger than anyone realized. The temperature of the storyline rose higher and higher, building towards something explosive, something that could shatter Port Charles when the truth finally broke through. And Emma knew the climax was coming. She could feel it burning in her chest the same way Anna used to feel danger before anyone else sensed it. The obsessions tormenting Anna were not random, they were warnings, signals, echoes of a threat that had evolved into something new and far more calculated. The more Emma learned, the more she realized she wasn't racing against corrupt administrators or medical negligence. She was racing against a machine built from the remnants of Faison's madness, a machine now operating under Cullum and Sidwell's control. The heat of the unfolding chaos surged higher, and Emma, fueled by desperation, determination, and a fierce love for the woman who had raised her, stepped into the role Anna once held. Investigator. Protector. Warrior. She knew the next steps would be dangerous, possibly irreversible, but she also knew that the fire inside her, the fire that had always belonged to Anna, was now hers to wield. And with that fire, she would tear down the walls built to destroy her grandmother, no matter who she had to expose. no matter what truths she would have to unleash, and no matter how terrifying the conspiracy had grown, because saving Anna was no longer just a mission. It had become Emma's destiny.